Hey guys, welcome to Days with Dalia. I am so excited to be officially launching this channel with this series where I'm going to be hearing from some of you about some of the situations that you have in life that you're dealing with, and hopefully being able to give you some advice on how you can tackle it and how you can best move forward based on everything that I know about the world and about life. So I have a viewer who wrote in yesterday. She said, I'm a 30-year-old female born and raised in Barcelona. Growing up, I wanted to be a journalist just because my teachers would tell me that I was good at writing and I loved reading books. Then my parents enrolled me in a very academically focused high school where you were constantly preparing for the equivalent of your SATs, which determined which degree you were going to be able to join. I decided to enroll in a business degree to prevent having a hard time when looking for a job. My parents were quite surprised by that decision, as it was very practical all on my own when I realized that journalism was such a hard career. Joining that very prestigious degree was very hard for me. I suddenly became the dumbest person in the room for the first time in my life. I was having such a hard time with my classes and just really hated it. I was hired by an Irish consultancy 6 months before graduating, so I never really got into the workforce in the normal way. I've been a consultant with them for 8 years. I worked in Dublin and Toronto. That's when I found out about your channel, and I have been in New York for the past 4 years. I've been recently laid off, which was extremely painful and stressful as my work visa was linked to my job. So after working and living in New York for the last 4 years and meeting my husband here, I had to make the rushed decision to get married right after I was laid off because my work visa became void when I was laid off. Oh, so hard. I guess I want your general advice on this hard period of my life and where I'm currently unemployed, currently unable to travel back to my family or leave the country. Also, for the first time looking for a job, not knowing at all really where to head off, as my original plan with consultancy was to be able to experience many different departments within a company or a bank, and I thought that was the easiest way to figure out what to do. I believe you have to experience things to be able to know if you want to pursue a career in that area. My reality was very different, as I ended up doing essentially very similar things for my 8 years at the company, and I only worked for banks, and now I see all this gigantic work market where I feel so unprepared and unskilled for it. I feel like I've wasted my 20s in the career sense. I know you worked in corporate and obviously decided to leave to do YouTube full time. I just want to be happy, to be fulfilled, and to earn a decent amount of money. Like, I don't need to be rich, but I want to be comfortable and be able to go on holidays and be able to buy more than necessities. Would love to hear your point of view on any of these topics and really appreciate you taking the time with this. Thank you. I first just want to take a second to acknowledge all that you were able to actually accomplish so far at 30 years of age. You got yourself through a business degree that was a challenge for you. You got hired right out of school. You became a consultant, a management consultant, I believe. You took yourself from Barcelona to the likes of Dublin, to Toronto, to New York. That is such a commendable, admirable trajectory. And that really takes a lot of guts and initiative to be able to do. Moving to a new place is scary. Starting at new companies over and over through being a consultant is a lot. That's such hard work. And you were able to do that. So I think just a moment for acknowledging how much effort you've put forward and where that's led you. And that to me, I think is something that you should be really proud of. I see a couple things going on here, and I think there's a couple different areas. There's the aspect of where did this all start out, and then there's the what should you do now and how can you do it. If I take it back to what you shared about high school, you said that you wanted to be a journalist, but that seemed kind of daunting because that's a hard career path, but teacher said that you were really good at writing and you really, really loved to read. So I think there's something really important that happens in that time of life where we're very influenced by the words that we hear and other people's interpretation of what they think is practical for us. And if you didn't really have an upbringing that encouraged your own self-expression and self-discovery and a lot of confidence in really knowing who you are and who you see yourself as, it can be really easy to be swayed by what people say. And so one thing that I would just encourage you to do is just to look back to probably pre the age of 20, pre the age of 22, and try and understand for yourself, what is it, if anything, that you were particularly passionate about? I know that you mentioned that you loved reading, and usually that brings about certain specific skills, or it's an indicator of certain specific skills that are your key, your power skills, your super strong strengths. And pay attention to what those are, because I think a lot of times, like when you say you went to a highly academically focused high school and then a hard business program, it's like a lot of those innate skills that you have aren't illustrated in those types of environments. In fact, you're really graded upon a rubric that doesn't consider the holistic aspect of all the skills that you can have in life. And I think that if you can hone in a little bit more to those special skills that make you you, that you think, okay, like this, when I really try and ground myself and think of who am I as a person, what are the things that are special about me and what I do and who I am? And that could be like talking to people. Maybe you have a specific way with words. I know a lot of people who like read, their vocabulary becomes very eloquent and interesting. Unlike myself, I only really started reading as an adult in the last couple of years. Maybe someone has a really special skill in visualizing things or managing a timeline and managing different types of people. So like what are those qualities about you that might have gotten overlooked because they're not highlighted in the school system. They're not highlighted in the business program. And hone in on those and pay attention to those, because you really want to suss out a career or a dynamic where those are the things that you can, in a way, highlight or that get recognized. Just as an activity, I think that's a really, really good thing to do. And just a quick note about going to business school and that being really, really challenging and feeling like you kind of were the stupidest person or the dumbest person in the room, as you said. First, I just want to say, like, people go to business school, like you and me both, because it's practical. For that exact reason. It's like you want to be able to get a job pretty easily. Maybe your forte wasn't biology, so you're not going to be a doctor. Maybe your forte wasn't math, so you're not going to be an engineer. And then what's left that's practical, and business school ends up being kind of like the answer for a lot of people. It was for me, it was for my husband, it was for two of my sisters and my dad and my mom. So, I got you. But I just want to draw your attention to the fact that when you look at your experience and think, I don't know if I can do something, or I feel unprepared, or I wasted my time, it's like, just try and focus on, from the time of business school, like what were the qualities that you did learn? How did your brain develop through those experiences? And what can you take away from that? I know in business school, a lot of times there's certain classes that if you perform well in, people tend to think you're smart, and they tend to be finance, accounting, economics, and they tend to not be so much HR, ops, marketing. So just like to reframe how you look at that experience as well, I think might be a little bit valuable, because who cares about the smartest people? Who cares about being around the smartest people? In the end, everyone has their own big skills. And if you can like get into a position where you can leverage those, you will always stand out. You will always be like a little bit of a shining star. And who cares about being the smartest person or being among the best? Like, to me, that doesn't matter at all. Okay. I hear a lot here that you joined a consulting company. You've worked there for 8 years, including at major companies, predominantly banks. I just want to just ground my perspective. So I worked in corporate for about 10 years, several siblings in corporate. My dad was an executive. I just want to highlight something to you, and I hope it means something. Being a management consultant is one of the hardest jobs you can get into. When you say like you got hired at a school, in North America, that's like recruiting. Like you got hired, you didn't have to do the grind of applying at that time because they saw something in you that meant that you would be able to do this prestigious, hard role of consulting. That's how it's viewed here. And I think like your experience in the banks is super, super valuable. I get a little bit of sense of like imposter syndrome, and I get it, where you're saying like you've spent so much time doing the same type of roles in banks and now you see it as you're unprepared and you're unskilled. But let me tell you, the skill that's required to be a consultant, to go in and join a company, work on a project and be able to kind of like bop around sometimes, or just to join in and be able to lead a project or do your part, like that is very challenging and very respected. Also, banks are a very challenging environment to be in, and they are highly regarded in terms of corporations that you can work for. I want to say, like, I did take a look at your LinkedIn. girl. I have a lot of experience working with people that held your type of roles, who came from your exact background, and your skill set is highly, highly, highly applicable to so many different areas. So with your skill set, you could be a project manager, a product manager, a program manager, a strategic projects manager. You should not look at yourself in a bubble. Don't limit yourself. Look at your skill set that you've gained. Look at the types of things that you've done, and then really, really consider, like, it can apply across industries. It doesn't matter if the majority of your industry has been at banks. It can apply across industries. The real question, there's two kind of questions here. There's the what should you do and how can you do it? So on the what should you do factor, I think it seems like there's kind of two things. There's the, I used to be passionate about something else, and then I ended up in this niche, and you're not sure like what else there is out there. And for that, I would say maybe do some thinking around, like, is it that you want to do something that you're like, that you are actually super passionate about? Or are you the type of person who, even doing what you were doing before, you felt enough passion and fulfillment with it? If you felt unfulfilled and you're struggling now with like what to do, and you want to do something that you find more fulfilling or that more aligns to your strengths, then from there, I would really recommend not only to do that step of like, what are my true strengths? What can I be really good at naturally? What are my interests? What I find fulfilling? But also to do some thinking around what other industries you might be interested in. And if it really comes down to the fulfillment aspect, I can recommend, because I know you said you like to read, one of the best books has been by Rick Rubin, called The Creative Act. And that really helps around like the greater purpose, doing what you might feel passionate about, like understanding what you feel like you want to give to the world, if that is your cup of tea. And for a lot of people, it's not. A lot of people are totally contented with just like earning a living and doing something in a nice enough environment. So for me, I think I probably fell more into that first camp. But for most people that I know, they fall into the second camp, which is like, I'm kind of okay. It doesn't need to be like the most fulfilling thing. It just needs to earn me an income. I need to be okay. I need to feel not miserable. And if that's the case, then I would say figuring out what you want to do comes down to, do you want to stay in the same industry? Was that enough for you? If you want to stay in the banking industry, your background will align perfectly, not only to other consulting companies, if that interests you, but also in the banking industry, you should have absolutely no problem. And also, don't discount fintech companies, because they also have a lot of overlap as well in terms of the background, and the background with finance and with banking can be valuable. If you also want to stay a little bit closer, you can look at other companies that would have a industry where their clients are banks. So for example, like Google will have people that just work targeting financial institutions. And so there might be like other types of companies where your background in banking would be really, really valuable. And so you just got to kind of like look around, but keep your eyes a little bit open. And also keep in mind, project manager, program manager, strategic projects manager. There's a lot of different types of titles that you can, you have very strongly overlapping skills for. If you don't want to stay in the banking industry at all, you can also leap from the banking industry. You can take your experience, if you're okay with it, if you're okay with those types of roles, you can jump from where you are to any industry hiring for those roles. And I'm going to tell you what I think you could do for that in just a second. But basically, don't think of yourself as like limited into a box. You have to consider your experience as being very strong, because it literally is. I'm not just saying that. Your experience is very strong with very transferable skills. And yes, most of your experience is in a bank. Maybe it's even in a certain type of department in the bank. That doesn't matter. So many people in my experience who are outside of the banking industry and maybe outside of CPG, they come in and they don't really know the role that well. They don't really know. They have this skill set of, okay, I can mobilize people, I can manage projects, I can think strategically, but they don't have the exact right experience for the role, and that's okay. The how you can get the job, because I think it can be really demoralizing about like, okay, well, I have all this experience in this one area, like how can I get the right job that I want? I think there's a couple things. So first, your mentality in this time, and yes, such a trying time. Like I really feel for you. I think like my brother's in the States and he had that work tied to visa thing going on for a while. And like, that was really a hard period for him. So I can only imagine like that adds just extra stress, and you're so strong for being able to like get through that and make decisions through that time. But in terms of like how you can get the job that you want, your mentality is going to be everything. You need to find a way, and you can like literally search YouTube for videos that are motivational, that are targeting imposter syndrome. Find those videos and try and internalize them. Start your day with something positive every day. Really internalize the fact that like your experience is valuable. The way that you think and what you bring to the table is valuable, because you're going to have to look at your resume and your cover letter and really market the crap out of yourself. Think of when you're writing your cover, because I know that you said you never had to do that grind like initially. Now you have to like look at your experience and run it through a marketing filter. So like, if you worked on this project that you think is just pretty good, and like, yeah, it was like, reviewed by executives, and yeah, got this budget of whatever, you need to write that in the most convincing way, like led a team of 20 people to implement a $5 million project that would boost profits in international markets. Next bullet, presented to C-level in order to gain buy-in for a budget of $5 million. Like, you need to like filter everything that you have done and filter it in the strongest marketing way possible. And that's very hard to do if you don't have a good mentality about it. I'm telling you, your experience is extremely transferable, extremely valuable. You just need to market it. And to that, you have to believe in yourself. So that's like a big thing, like believing yourself. I think some of the tactical stuff, especially if you want to branch out, but even for roles that highly relate to your background, writing a cover letter and a resume that is actually tailored to the specific role goes a long, long way. And then what you can do, like I always did this. So if you like wrote a very tailored, like why the company, why you think you'd be a good fit, how your strongest skills align to that, include that in a cover letter. You can even use like ChatGPT to assist a little bit to kind of customize it. You can literally put in the job description, put in your resume, and tell it to write a cover letter. But it's always the best when it's like written from the heart and very tailored to the job. And then also, especially if you're applying to companies in different industries where your background is not a perfect match, definitely tailor your resume to highlight certain aspects that directly link to that industry, even if it's a stretch, even if it's just in skill set. Have a version for that. So like, say you want to apply to tech companies, rack your brain for all the overlaps with the job and the industry and what you have, and then write a version for that and update it every time you're applying to a different technology company so that it better aligns. And then you'll end up having like one that's more or less for like certain types of roles. Maybe there's one that's more tailored to like being a program manager, and there's one that's more tailored for strategic projects. Have different versions and then reuse them for similar types of roles. Add in stuff about the industry, market yourself. That's basically what you need to do. Also, try and reach out to people if you can figure out who actually posted the role or who has that type of position on LinkedIn, and reaching out to kind of shoot a message and shoot your shot, really. And when you do that, try and find someone who has any type of overlap. Maybe it's someone who worked at one of the same companies as you in the past. Maybe it's someone who has a consulting background, someone who's from Europe, went to the same school as you, anything, any overlap. Highlight it, try your best for it to be like you're drawing a connection there. But yeah, lastly, I just want to say, like, with your background, you can get into different industries. You can, if you want to work for a charity, you can get into a charity. You can take the types of roles that you've held just at the title level. Those skills are there's so much overlap and they're so needed. And like when I have worked in my professional capacity with project managers, for example, who are really, really good, they didn't come from the same background, they got hired in, and what they were really good at doing was just quickly understanding a situation, understanding the problems, working with people, mobilizing people, and actually understanding the impact to the business. And like that, they were golden. You didn't really need that exact background. I also think coming up in banking is like a very weird thing, because in the banking industry, I think there are a lot of people that like came out of school into banking, and then the next level up, it's like they just progress linearly through that model. And so there's a lot of people that have similar experience and they're very well versed, but that's not the case in other industries. Tech is one of those industries. So lastly, I just want to say, like, I know it can be easy after quite a bit of time of doing the same types of things, especially if you haven't loved it or if you've had some bad experiences or if you've worked with crappy people, to kind of like lose that self-confidence. And especially so if you like grew up in a situation, in a society, in a household, whatever, that really equated your worth to fulfilling certain tasks, performing in a certain way, meeting expectations, especially for parents and teachers and stuff like that. It can actually start so much younger. And if that's the case, I think there's just like a little bit of soul searching involved as well. That's why I said, like, go and look at your strengths and try and understand that. If you find, because I know a lot of times for people who have been laid off, sometimes it's hard to find the motivation to apply and stuff like that. I just watched a video from The Healthy Gamer that was about procrastination. If that applies to you, I will link it down below. Even I struggle with procrastination as well. So keeping that healthy mindset, surround yourself with good messages, surround yourself with motivational messages. Try and look into YouTube, Google about imposter syndrome, Google about finding motivation to do things, and carry forward. I promise you, you have strong strengths. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to do what you've done so far. It's not a coincidence. It's because of who you are. And you've learned a lot of stuff. Your mind has grown so much from your experiences, and you just need to leverage that, stay grounded, and take that forward, knowing that like you are worthy, you can contribute something of value, and honestly that like your background and your experience is among the best, to be honest. It really is among the best. So think of yourself as for what you actually are, market yourself, and you've got this.